is Martha. I'm 16 years old. In my mother's eyes, I was a clumsy, selfish, roaming, cocky, self-willed daughter. In general, she believed I was born with all the adjectives that indicated ungratefulness, and she never imagined I would become class president. There was one thing you have to know about me, and that is that I was incredibly stubborn. Mom was upset with me all the time because I was always going against her. I was obstinate and rebellious. I never felt sorry when my mother scolded me. Instead, I would open my mouth to argue back and enrage my mother. "I don't want to talk to you anymore, Martha." That was normally how my mother ended an argument, while I triumphantly laughed and teased her. I like to be on my own. My mother once took me to a bookshop and I requested that she purchase a large book for me, like the one in the movie Charmed. "Do you ever read books, Martha?" My mother was aware that I just wanted to buy it because it was attractive, but that I would never read it. Furthermore, it was not inexpensive. So I waited until my mother's birthday and purchased her a book she would like, as well as my favorite book. It was now tucked up under the bed. Only when I needed to take a selfie or film TikTok did I take it out. My personality, as you can see, was not suited to be the class president. However, as my freshman year of high school approached, I imagined how cool it would be to be the class president. It would make me look like Captain America in class. "Mom, I'm going to run for president of the class." "What?" My mother looked at me with surprise and protested right away. "Certainly not. You can't be class president, Martha." "No, I want to be the president of my class. Being class president is a lot of fun. My instructions must be followed by everyone." "No, no, no, and no. You'll get into a lot of trouble and no one has to obey your commands. You don't need to be the mafia. All you need is to make friends in your new school." All night before my lessons, my mother was terrified that I would raise my hand to nominate myself. My mother warned me that if I caused difficulty for myself, she would detain me. I had never been class president before. I was always unconcerned with what was going on around me, so being in charge of a whole team would be a huge challenge for me. I went to school and attended the course. I was apprehensive, tense, and waited as each position on the staff board was given to individuals who seemed to have potential, one by one. I didn't have any doubts about my ability. Actually, I was rather attractive, and my academic abilities were quite good. I was just thinking that if I raised my hand to nominate myself, I'd have to confront the gaze of all my new classmates, which would make me terribly nervous. Should I raise my hand or not? There was only this one chance to try, to be cool for a moment. "Raise your hand," I said to myself, as soon as the homeroom teacher inquired. "Who wants to be the class president?" "Miss," I said as I stood up. My arms were raised up all the way to the ceiling. My voice was low, but not trembling. The entire room was quiet. Everyone was looking at me. My heart was racing, and my face was flushed with fear, as red as the blood flowing to my head. "Does anyone else want to compete with me?" I asked, and no one raised their hands. The homeroom teacher was overjoyed to announce, "Did you put yourself up for class president, Martha? Are there any objections?" There was no one who objected, and as a result, I was elected as the class president. When I returned home, I informed my mother of this news. My mother was furious, to say the least. "I'm sorry, Martha, but I'm unable to communicate with you any longer. You haven't finished looking after yourself yet. You're not good at studying. Are you even capable of handling this responsibility? So, how would you keep the class under control? So many duties are thrust upon you. You should resign right now before you regret it later," my mum said. I didn't say anything to my mother and returned to my room. Closing the door behind me, I thought, it will be a huge embarrassment for me if I resign now. What would my new acquaintances think of me? It'll be fine if I give it my all. I will do it. I was obstinate. I was extremely obstinate. Therefore, I tried my best. I was proactive during the first few weeks. I took notes, took care of all my members, diligently reminded the class to stay in order, and at the same time, I actively previewed all the new lessons, searching for each term that I didn't understand. My mother couldn't believe her ears when my teacher complimented me on a job well done as the class president in the beginning of the year at the parent meeting. I was overjoyed when I heard that from my mother, thinking that this school year I would be renowned and majestic. So every day when I went to class, I began acting in various ways, always believing that I was more skilled and intelligent than others, and that unless everyone listened to me, my face would look annoyed and shrink like a reusable plastic bag, completed with a classic pout and a nasty, demanding voice. I would sit there glancing around and feeling upset in my heart whenever someone else could answer challenging questions presented by the subject teachers. I wanted to be known as the greatest student in my class. When I talked, I had to be the one that everyone paid attention to. I was the class monitor. I had to be the best. Since then, my egotistical and selfish personality emerged to take up a significant portion of my character. I was so proud of myself that I wouldn't mind apologizing to anyone. I was usually the first to come up with the interplanetary talk questions in class, since I was used to being the center of attention. Teachers began to complain about the class's discipline. Some of my classmates were dissatisfied with how I handled the situation. In addition to that, I began to be subjective in my capacity for my work, and I began to neglect my studies as a result of my extreme pride. Or I simply held the notebooks and sat there doing nothing. Despite the fact that the notebooks were right in front of me, my thoughts drifted somewhere else, roamed around in another universe, a universe made of jealous and nasty bricks bonded together with subjective glue, which made me isolated from the rest of the world. Midterm exams came and went quickly. I wanted to cry as I held the scoreboard in my hands. I believed I was answering correctly when I finished the test. However, sadly, for 4 of 5 of my tests, I received only a 5, and I got the lowest grades in the class. That could not possibly be the case. I was on the edge of a breakdown. My school band was significantly damaged despite me being the class representative. I tried not to cry. I hid in the toilet during breaks between courses. To a restroom and shut the door behind me. And then I suddenly heard a door open, followed by 3 familiar voices chirping. It turned out to be my 3 classmates. Amanda, Amelia, and Jenny. I was going to call them, but then I heard Amanda's voice. She was my best friend in class, had accompanied me on several missions to talk privately in class, and was one of the individuals I trusted. But unfortunately, that voice was the source of some nasty gossip behind my back, as the primary female in the story was none other than myself. Amelia, do you have any idea what the math marks of a class president is? 10 points, huh? No, you put too much faith in her. Jenny spoke in a scornful tone. What? I thought that Martha is good at studying. She is confident in her knowledge of a wide range of topics. Amelia raised an objection. That's simply her outward label. We chat all day in class. She doesn't control the class well, which irritates the teachers, so it's reasonable for our teachers to give her a bad grade. Amanda interjected. She's so lazy. I thought she knew how to be humble in the beginning of the year. It was like that at first, but now that her true character has been revealed, I'm sure no one will listen to her anymore. They all chirped on as they left, leaving me humiliated, stunned, and alone in the toilet. I was in a bad mood. Going to school was no longer a joyful experience filled with laughter, just a reminder of the scenario of being betrayed, being spoken about behind my back, and being secretly examined by classmates. It made my heart race, and I felt that coming to class every day was a burden. The more frightened I became, the more distracted I was in class. I began to feel hesitant to talk and no longer dared to join in conversation with my friends. My classroom management was getting worse and worse. Decide on the class shirt, class president. I was taken aback when I got a message from John, my classmate. What? Which class shirts? I tiredly opened the class chat group. A series of ideas popped into my head, and I thought to myself, why does my class have such awful taste? How can we wear this kind of shirt? I couldn't imagine having to wear a grey shirt with some scribbled graffiti on it. My class would be like a crazy cult. I started chatting with the group. This shirt is awful. Can we change it up? President, could you please express your idea? You don't even have an artistic eye, but you still have an opinion. This was Amanda, the one I disliked the most in class, who sent the harshest text message to this day. I was furious. I wondered how she would dare show this attitude toward me. I was so annoyed that I typed a line, Amanda, you have no right to say that to me. I'm the president of this class. Amanda was unconcerned, and knowing my flaws, she remarked sarcastically, Is it true that only the class president has the authority to speak? Class president, you're not the universe's belly button. Do you really believe that if you speak your mind, everyone must listen to you? We've had enough of your attitude. What kind of class president speaks privately in class? You only know how to be jealous of others. If you are dissatisfied with anything, you will scream and pout your lips. Please understand that this class is tired of your classroom management style. I was definitely blamed. I was an active participant in the class program. I attempted to assist my classmates with each work of art, assisted in the editing of class movies, and encouraged everyone to come up with the places and ideas for the floral arrangement contest. I just wondered why they couldn't notice the time and work I have put in. And as if that wasn't enough, a snapshot of the text was shared to the group chat with the names cut out. As each line appeared, it shortened my breath and heart rate as well as my beliefs. The class president, in my opinion, should be replaced. The type of people that stand around doing nothing are no longer fit to lead our organization. My heart stopped beating. For a moment, I thought that I was going to die, being so humiliated and scorned. No one believed me at the time. Everyone turned away from me. I felt as though I were being dragged down into a dark river. I was sinking. I screamed and thrashed. I begged for help. There was just no way out, no one to pull me up. The water current kept rushing, as if intended to bury me with the title of class president at the bottom of the ocean. When my efforts to connect people together and improve the class were ignored, I was disappointed. I hated myself for not listening to my mother and for always doing what I wanted, regardless of the consequences afterwards. I started crying. Shame, unfairness, and self-hatred were all there in each tear. I wouldn't be scrutinized if I wasn't the class president, and I wouldn't have had to get my hands on stuff like this. My life would be more pleasant if I hadn't become class president. I shouldn't have done it. Perhaps I should resign immediately as class president. I was about to turn off my phone when it alerted me of a new message. It was Henry, the quiet boy in the back of the class. I was concerned about him because Henry was a mysterious person who was intelligent and attractive. He didn't raise his hand to speak in class very frequently, and he only volunteered when there was a challenging task, and his score was quite high. So I admired him. I often thought of an excuse to approach him and inquired about books or notified him of the class schedule. It was fair to say that I had strong sentiments for him. Hello, Martha. Don't be bothered by everyone's criticism. Consider it a suggestion. Don't resign because there's no one else more suitable to be the class president than you. I was in a daze. A warm ray of sunshine penetrated my heart, mixed with a little consolation. It turned out that the individual for whom I had feelings was also the one in the class who still believed and supported me. I deliberated for a long time before making a decision. During the activity time, with the same courage and nervousness as the day I raised my hand to run for class president, I said, "Miss, I'd like to share something with the class. I would like to apologize to the class with great regret, and I wish to improve myself." I also discussed the challenges of becoming class president for the first time, the difficulty of balancing school and studies, and the moments when I felt the class come together, laughing, my heart instinctively feeling warmer, as if that was the first sweet fruit, the success of my leadership. I couldn't recall what emotions I had still expressed, but the entire class, including Amanda, clapped in support, comfort, and honestly contributing ideas. When my efforts to improve paid off at the end of term 1, I was overjoyed. I had enough marks to be a good student. Not only that, but my class won second place in the school's intellectual and cheerleading competitions and was dubbed the most progressive class on the block. Since we all knew each other's personalities and abilities, I was greeted warmly by my teacher and friends, and I was ecstatic. I enjoyed this life and credited the arguments and criticism I received from others, forcing me to repent and improve, eventually becoming an example, fair-minded class cadre who always prioritized the common goals, an academically successful student, a daughter who could think logically, assist my mother with housework, and be less stubborn when making mistakes. The air was saturated with the sweetness and innocence of student love on Valentine's Day. The smell of iron clothes of boys attempting to be grown-ups and courteous flew into my nostrils, together with the light aroma of girls' hair. My heart sank a little as I looked around the couples who were just entering the school, Have I ever considered getting a boyfriend? But it appeared that no one was concerned about me. Is there something to be jealous of? I spoke to myself. Would you allow me to be your satellite by accident, your bodyguard on this Valentine, class president? I heard a familiar voice ringing in my ears. My desk drawer had a piece of paper with a light pink paper bag containing a rose-flavored chocolate bar, which was the one of my favorites. The paper bag had retained its warmth. I was confused and frightened. Who pitied me or purposefully teased me? I looked out the glass door and saw Henry standing there, the light shining on his black hair and brilliant eyes staring at me. I froze. His cheeks flushed. He breathed deeply and walked towards me. Because the emotional circuits were vibrating at a faster than light speed, my entire body felt like it was going to explode. I smiled as I brushed through my hair. Whatever happens, always do your best and take responsibility, class president, said John.
Hello, I am Leah, a secondary student. I'm surely you have had desire to mess around, right? But what's about messed up enough to burn your house down? That was an unexpected problem I had. To be honest, I didn't want to burn my house at all. Unlike the majority of girls, I am a big fan of football. You can't imagine how great my love for football is. Since I was a child and I have been keen on watching and playing football, many people think it's weird, but for me, it's normal. Even if you have seen To the Beautiful You, an American version, I always consider her as an ideal model. My parents didn't want me to play football, but luckily they didn't stop me either. Therefore, I usually play football with the school club after school before I come back home. I don't want to show off, but at that time I was also gifted in football, and I even won many school awards. But since I broke my leg because of playing soccer, my parents stopped me from playing it and determined to throw away all my football-related belongings, even my awards, into the warehouse. I tried to persuade my parents many times, but they refused it. During 2 months of convalescing at home, more than ever, I really missed the feeling of running on the football field and having fun with friends. So at that time, I decided to sneak out to play football without my parents' permission. I lied to my parents about having extra class after school to review my knowledge and quickly catch up friends after a long time recovering from injury. I also told them that they didn't need to pick me up either because I wasn't sure when it'd end, so I would ask my friend to bring me back home. My parents, they all knew about him, so they were reassured to let me go home late. Every time I return home, I often run straight to my room to shower and wash my socks so that my parents don't notice about unusual things. Then I hide them that my parents can't find out. Everything was going smoothly until one day, looking for a safe place to hide my socks as every time. My parents appeared and asked me about the extra classes. At that time, I was standing next to the fireplace and I had no choice but to throw them into the fireplace. Because of thinking about every questions from my mom, I completely forgot about the socks. After that, my family had a dinner at a restaurant. While having a nice chat, my dad got a call from my neighbor. It very loud and I couldn't hear what they were saying, but my father, he was pretty freaked out. And there was sound from fire struck coming from my father's phone. At that time, I suddenly remembered and worried about the socks thrown into the fireplace. After the call, my father hurried us quickly to go home because our home was on fire. This shocked us a lot. We rushed to the car to back home right away. By the time we got back, our beloved home had been destroyed to a pile of ashes. My parents burst into tears, and I was scared because I understood that I was the one burned my house down. After that accident, I tried to confess my parents many times, but I didn't have courage enough and kept it to myself. Luckily, we were not at home that day and no one was hurt either. My biggest regret is my family's lives in a car for a time while the police investigated the cause of the fire and waited for the insurance's payment. At present, the police haven't found out the cause of the fire that day, and I gave up playing football completely because of my guilty act. Although many years have passed, I still feel so sorry when I visit my parents and can't admit it. Therefore, Never lie to your parents and listen to them because they always brings the best for you. Hiding secrets and lying will have consequences. You know, most girls were obsessed with gaining weight. They always think that fat meant ugly. Trust me, beauty was not something that determined everything. Sometimes being fat was also an advantage. Trust me. I was also a girl with a fat body, but that didn't stop me from winning over the hearts of the most well-known boys in high school. Listen to my stories if you don't believe me. Hi everyone, I'm Lisa. I'm 15 years old. I was teased by people about my weight when I was young. They used to call me Fatty Lisa, a hateful nickname. It was not funny when someone called me by that nickname, but I got so used to it that I didn't want to resist when being called like that. And as I attended high school, I realized that my differences about my look weren't not only the target of those who always picked on others, but also a huge obstacle to blend in the school. If you consider high school as a small medieval society, it is the place where you can find the most obvious class division in the cafeteria. Just by looking at the seating position, you can know who controlled the school. Right in the middle of the cafeteria is the most prestigious table. It is the seat for the dominant class. There are all the famous students in the school, the club leaders, and Eric, the most handsome guy in our group, was also my crush. Unlike the arrogant people sitting at the table, Eric was always friendly and kind to people, even though he never remembered his name. The girl sat behind him for 3 years in biology. Back to the other classes, it is the table for rich children. Next, the table on the left for the students and the right for the Christian students. And my seat is a table for the losers next to the classroom. However, it wasn't that bad, because at least I was next to my best friend Joan is a football. Like me, Joan is on the list of losers. No matter how people underestimate us, we are always happy with our humor. We always come up with fun tricks to tease each other whenever we are sad. There was another member, Sam. She used to be isolated because of her acne-filled face. But miraculously, after a successful summer of puberty, Sam returned to school with a gorgeous and hot look. That was why she abandoned us to sit at the same table with well-known students in school. I was sad that she didn't talk much with us since Sam had new friends. I felt like I'd lost a friend. One day, Sam suddenly texted me and Joan. She wanted to invite us to the upcoming Halloween party at her house. This year's makeup concept was funny and silly. Joan and I were very excited when we were invited by an old friend. I thought maybe Sam didn't forget us and the three of us would get back together again. Joan and I quickly came up with a funny costume because it was our specialty. Joan dressed up like a potato bag. I dressed up as a hamburger with my chubby appearance. We looked at ourselves in the mirror and burst into laughter because our appearance looked realized that I had made a serious mistake. Everyone at the party was paying attention to us. This year's makeup concept was not funny one, as Sam said, but this year's concept was dressing up as elegant ladies and gentlemen. Our clothes suddenly became a ridiculous thing at the party. I looked angrily at Sam, and she looked at us with a sarcastic smile. It turned out until now that her main purpose that day was to make fun of us, and all the things that she wanted to prove to her new friends that she wasn't close to the losers like us. I froze there because I was so surprised. But at that time, the song of Michael Jackson's Thriller was playing, and Joan started dancing to the beat. He also gave me the signal to dance along with him. I did what he told me to do. We entered the middle of the dance floor and began to dance crazily. The crowd also got excited. They laughed loudly and danced with us. The awkward atmosphere of the beginning suddenly became more happy. After the song, people cheered us up. They even said our clothes were funny. I saw Joan felt relieved with a breathe because we were lucky not to turn into hilarious things for everyone to laugh. However, what I didn't expect the most was that my crush Eric noticed me. He approached me and complimented me for the funny dance and even asked for my phone number. After that day, Eric and I became closer. We talked a lot every evening. We spent a lot of time together at school, and I didn't eat with Joan anymore, but I chose to eat with Eric. But Sam didn't seem to be happy about it. She always showed an unpleasant attitude when Eric and I act friendly. Maybe I also figured out why Sam liked Eric, and she was jealous of me. Sam's jealousy grew bigger when she hurt me again. That day, a friend in the class found out that he had lost his wallet. She wanted to check each person's bag to find it. When I searched my bag, I found a friend's wallet in it. I was very surprised that I didn't take it, and I didn't understand why it was in my bag. Despite my explanation, people still thought I was a thief. When I was taken to the principal's room, Joan ran to me. He stormed into the room and gave the principal a tape to clear me of the crime. The tape showed that Sam took a friend's wallet and put it in my bag. Soon, Sam had to pay for her actions. She was suspended from school. I suddenly became a celebrity at school. The people at the prestigious table started talking to me. They even invited me to eat with them. Everyone there was interested in me, even though they were willing to tease me all the time before that. But that also made Eric closer to me. I was so happy to sit with him. It was an honor for me to sit next to these famous friends, but I felt more alienated. I didn't feel the truth in their words. It made me miss Joan, especially after what he did to me. I hadn't talked much with Joan since I got to know Eric, and I felt sorry for abandoning him. During lunchtime at the cafeteria, Eric suddenly asked me to be his girlfriend. I should have been excited about it, but now my eyes were only aiming at Joan. He was sitting alone at our loser table. My heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. I realized that it was Joan who I liked. He was always with me, even when I was ugly or in trouble. The feeling I had for Eric was just admiration, not love. I immediately turned down Eric's offer and returned to the table for losers with Joan. I confessed my feelings to him, and I was surprised that Joan also had feelings for me. He said he had liked me for a long time. Joan and I have recently dated, and we are very happy. So, now you believe that being fat is also an advantage. Do you hate your sister? I do. The reason why I always hate her is because she always annoys me. But until I found out the truth, I was so regretful. Hi, my name is Tana. I was 15, and I have an older sister called Hannah. In the summer, when I was 6 years old, my parents were busy working for a factory. They asked a neighbor to come and look after me and my sister. While I was watching TV with Hannah, my phone suddenly rang. I ran towards and picked up the phone. Hello, Tana. I'm going to go on a trip to the south coast of Cali. You're probably still home. Bye-bye. I have to go now. That was my friend in kindergarten, Jade. She called me to brag about his family trip. It made me sad and burst into tears. Seeing me crying, Hannah rushed to hug me and comforted me. Don't cry, Tana. My parents will allow us to travel when we have enough money. Now let's play a trip game on TV together. When hearing my sister's words, I stopped crying. My sister Hannah always loves me that much. That night, Hannah said to our mom, "Mom, why don't we go somewhere? Tana wants to go." Mom sadly said, "No, Hannah, we need to save money." Hannah still begged her mom, "Mom, if you let us go, I promise I won't ask for pocket money for half of the year." After a while, my mother agreed, and it made me very happy. The next day, my sister and I happily prepared for the weekend trip. To save money, my family decided to drive the car themselves. As I passed by a town, I saw an ice cream truck that looked very attractive. "Mom, I want to eat ice cream." My mom quickly told my dad to pull over and said, "Just stay in the car. I'll buy your ice cream and come back early." I nodded my head in agreement. Hannah was still sleeping in the car, and my father finished reading the newspaper this morning. Seizing the chance, I secretly opened the door to climb out of the car. I rushed across the street to the ice cream truck. Suddenly, from far away, a fast-paced big truck was coming towards me, honking loudly. It scared me so that I froze in the middle of the road and couldn't even lift my legs to run. "No, Tana!" My mom screamed and rushed at me and pushed me away. Then I heard the sound of a car collision. When I got up, my mother was lying with her blood. My father and sister just ran in time, but it was too late. My mother's injury was so severe that she couldn't get over it. We lost our mother. It was also the biggest pain inside me, even in my life and my sister's life. At her mother's funeral, I saw Hannah standing alone in the corner of the funeral home and cried. At this moment, I tried to hold back my tears and ran back to hug her. Hannah suddenly flung my hand hard, so I fell to the ground. "Get out! Because of you, our mom died. She told you to stay in the car, but you didn't. I hate you." Since then, Hannah had become a bit more quiet, and the distance between us is getting farther and farther. One day, my father told us to come down and said that he would often leave home for work to make money to take care of us. He held my hand, and Hannah said, "Hannah, you have to be stronger to protect Tana. And Tana, you have to listen to your sister." Just like that, I grew up in Hannah's care, but she always acted cool with me all the time. One day, during the lesson, my teacher announced to the class, "Our school is going to hold a food festival. Let's tell your mom to come and make cakes together." I shyly raised my hand. "But teacher, my mom's passed away." My teacher comforted me. "I feel sorry about that, Tana. You can tell your sister to come and join us." But it was not a good idea because I was so embarrassed when going with her to the fair. But I don't know what to do, so after school, I burst into tears. When seeing me crying, Hannah asked me, "What's wrong?" I immediately wiped my tears out and said, "I want to join the festival, but no one comes with me." "Let me." Hannah suddenly agreed, making me surprised. I was really happy when hearing she said that. On the day when the fair took place, Hannah came with me there. During the fair, everyone had to open their tray of cake to join the contest. At that time, I was nervous about waiting for my sister's finished products, but when opening the tray, there were many choco chip cookies like poops. So disgusting! Not stopping, she also decorated some flies on those cookies, making those cookies become disastrous. All the class saw my cookies, then they laughed out loud. This made me so embarrassed, and Hannah seemed to be really fully satisfied. Since then, she tended to tease me all the time. In school, I got along with a few friends. I said to Hannah, "Since tomorrow, you don't need to drive me to school. I will go to school with my friends. Tomorrow, they will come to our house and go with me." After hearing me say that, Hannah didn't say anything, but showed a bad attitude and got into the car. When I just stepped out of the door, I saw my friend Johnny, standing next to them with Hannah with her sleeve rolled up and raising her fist up. When I didn't understand what happened, all of my friends stormed away, and Hannah also "Hannah, why did you do that?" I angrily asked. "Because they are detestable and you never get along with them, okay?" Hannah said. I yelled at her, "You're selfish! Because of you, I've not had anyone around me. I hate you!" Although Hannah was always selfish and hated me, I also had a little happiness. I had a secret friend called Teddy. One day, I suddenly received a letter with a doodling picture. "Hello, Tana, I'm Teddy, and I've noticed you for a long time. You look great. Let's be friends." Even though I didn't meet him, but he was always my support throughout my childhood. Whenever some things that happened, I always wrote a letter to Teddy, and I always got the reply very fast. On the holiday, I also received small gifts from Teddy. Thanks to him, I always felt comforted and no longer lonely. When I was 14, I had my first love with a guy who was 4 years older than me. On our first date, it took a lot of time for me to prepare a perfect An hour went by. "Why haven't you come yet?" I replied with my high-pitched voice, "I've also been waiting for you for an hour in the fountain next to the plaza." "The fountain?" "A minute ago, I called you when your mom received the call. She said you wanted to change the location to the park," Pan said. Definitely, Hannah did it again. Maybe when I was taking a shower, she answered the phone and did all of this. She was so annoying. She ruined our first date. On this Saturday, Pan asked me to go out overnight in the suburb. After knowing that Hannah totally disagreed, no, Don't be so stupid like that. He is not reliable. Pat is my boyfriend, and he's a good guy. You were always ruining my thing. I angrily went out of the house and jumped on Pan's bike while Hannah constantly called my name. But we didn't go further yet. Then we had an accident on a highway because Pan was driving too fast. I lost a lot of blood, then I fainted. When I woke up, I saw myself in the hospital. I tried to lean myself forwards to call the doctor when I saw Hannah sleeping on the next bed. The doctor said to me, "You are so lucky to have a sister like her. Hannah came to the hospital in time to give you her blood and help you not to die." In the hospital, I saw my old friend who had been hit by my sister. After many years, she told me the reason why my sister had hit them. Actually, that time we were talking behind your back and laughed about you not having a mom and going with your sister to the festival. Your sister had heard everything, so she had hit us. Hannah always protected me secretly, but I always hated her and didn't understand her. When I came back home, I wrote a letter to Teddy and tell him about this. But this time, even though many days went by, he didn't reply to my letter. Tomorrow, Hannah was discharged, so today I came to her room to clean up in order to welcome home our home. Suddenly, when I cleaned, I came across a box, and that was many of the letters that I wrote for Teddy inside. This time, I realized that Teddy was Hannah, and the reason why Teddy didn't reply to my letter for a long time was that Hannah was staying in the hospital. When she was released, she confessed everything to me. Actually, that time, I felt guilty when I had hit your friend, which made you isolated, but I don't have enough courage to say sorry to you, so I pretended to be a friend to talk with you. I'm sorry, Tana. I understood everything that Hannah had done to me was because she wanted to protect me. Since my mom had lost, she always tried to be strong to take care of me. I hugged her and said, "Hannah, I'm sorry for always misunderstanding and hating you. Let's get back together." That night, we sat down and talked with each other. We promised that we always loved each other forever. And that was the reason why I am always regretful when realizing that I misunderstood my sister. How about you? I hope you should find out the reason clearly when someone does something to you before misunderstanding them. Thank you for listening to my story. Hello guys, my name is Ellie. I'm 15. Since my father passed away in a car accident, my family's life has been more and more distant. It seems like every member of the family had their own life and no longer was close to each other as the previous day. On Christmas Day that year, a strange thing happened in my family. According to my sister Hannah's words, it was my father's soul coming back to us. After 6 months when my dad passed away, my mom could recover from the pain of losing her husband. She wiped the tears away and became stronger to find a new job to take care of the family. Maybe because of the work pressure and worries about life that were exerted on my mom, she no longer smiled. To have enough money to raise me and my sister, she had to work 2 jobs simultaneously and often appeared to be exhausted whenever she was back home. As a result, our house got so dark and so cold. I always miss my dad a lot, and at times like that, I would hide in a quiet place and take some of my dad's photos to look at. But the one who took it the hardest to overcome this pain was Hannah, my 6-year-old sister. She always didn't stop mentioning Dad every day, and she wanted to go back to our family's happy times previously. Besides my study, I often had to spend time looking after my sister because my mom had to work all day, so she talked about Dad all the time drove me crazy. I knew how miserable my sister was, and with a 6-year-old kid like her, it was hard to accept the pain of losing my dad. But that she continued on mentioning him only made things get worse. Once I was pissed at Hannah. I yelled at her that Dad had passed away so he couldn't listen to what she said, and our life would never become the same as before. I knew my words were quite harsh, but my sister needed to understand and got over this. But when being attacked by me, her anger was triggered. She shouted at me and called me the worst sister ever in the world. I got angry and then went back to my room, leaving her crying alone. Since that incident, Hannah no longer talked to me anymore. She became quiet and no longer talkative like before. My sister always tried to avoid me and got annoyed whenever I approached her. Perhaps she was still very angry. She needed time to accept the truth. I thought so, and also tried to ignore my sister. I considered it as a way to help her be mature. Lots of things happened, and I also needed time to solve my own problem. As for my mom, she was too tied up with her job. She worked all day, so she had no time to care about her children's troubles. My mother was so exhausted, and I didn't want to bother her anymore. That's why my family became more and more distant, and we no longer sat down and talked with each other anymore. But one day, I suddenly found out about my sister's unusual behavior. Sometimes I saw her smiling alone, and seemed like she was trying to talk to someone. But when I came to check, nothing was abnormal. I tried to ask her, but she always kept quiet and returned to her room. It's not all the weird things happening to my family. Every morning when I woke up, I was always startled to find out that my sister was staring at me with strange eyes. I was freaked out and asked her to stop her weird attitude. But again, she kept silent and left. Hannah's behavior became more suspicious and weirder day by day. She always laughed and talked by herself. Her action was so sneaky, as if she was hiding something from me. Her actions made me think that maybe she was having psychological problems. Since then, I started to pay more attention to my sister. Her strange actions continued for many continuous days later, and it made me not get what purpose she did all those things. Until one day, a strange thing happened, and I reckoned that it was the reason why my sister's behavior became so bizarre. That day at midnight, when I was sleeping, I was woken up by a strange sound. I felt panicked and looked at my sister, and then discovered that she had disappeared. I hurriedly went to the attic where the sound came from to find my sister because I thought that she made that noise and exactly what I thought she was there. Looking from behind, I saw her sitting at the center of a circle surrounded by half-burnt candles. It seemed that she was doing something very suspicious on the floor. "What the heck are you doing?" I asked her loudly. Hannah was startled and then turned around. She immediately hid what was laying on the floor. I curiously approached her and tried to take that thing off. I couldn't believe it was a Ouija board. Why is she playing with this devil thing? I immediately asked her in a constant way. Hannah got angry and said that I ruined her magic session. And she explained that she came across the board in a second-hand shop. After knowing that the object could call the soul of the dead, she decided to bring it home to call our father's soul. She missed him so bad. I found her very foolish when believing that she could do it. I angrily asked my sister to return to her room right away. At first, you denied and declared that our father would definitely come back. But seeing my determination, she reluctantly did what I asked. And I sighed heavily when I had to clean up the mess she left. But as soon as I touched the board, I heard a strange sound come from the attic again. I quivered in fear and hurriedly threw the board on the floor and rushed to my room. The next morning, I told my sister's problem to my mother, but she only laughed and assumed it was just a kid's joke and didn't care about it. Although my sister threw the board away after that, but I was still quite scared. A few days later, we suddenly received a call from Uncle Joan, my father's younger brother. He said that this weekend he would visit our family for joining us on Easter Day. It's been a long time since my father died, and we had no longer met him. I adored Uncle Joan so much and was anticipating to see him again. That day, my mother left early from work to prepare dinner. We made a great honey-grilled ham to welcome Uncle Joan. After having finished cooking dinner, we suddenly received a call from Uncle Joan that the plane was delayed, so he would arrive later than expected. So we had to wait for Uncle Joan in the living room. A few hours went by. He still hadn't come yet. We began to be impatient and anxious. Right at that moment, there was a loud noise upstairs, followed by a series of shattering sounds of stuff falling. We rushed upstairs to check. Mom and I screamed in horror when we saw our stuff was messed up. There were also shoe stains with blood on the floor. "Dad! It's Dad! The Ouija board worked!" I quivered when hearing Hannah's words. What if her words were true? My mom tried to reassure us and track down the shoe bloodstain. It let us go to the attic and suddenly disappeared. We slowly opened the door and saw bloodstains all over the floor. From an empty closet, a moan came out with the sound of nails scratching on the wooden floor. Suddenly, the closet shaking made my mom and me frightened. But Hannah was so calm in an unusual way. She walked to the closet and opened it. From the inside, a dog with its whole body covered with blood was being tied up. "Sam, are you okay?" Hannah shouted. My mom and I looked at each other in a bewildered way. Seeing that, Hannah explained that the stray dog had followed her on the way home from school. So she thought that it was Dad's friend whom he'd brought to her, so she decided to adopt it. Because I was afraid that my mother and I would disagree, she hid the dog in the attic and secretly fed it every day. I and my mom sighed with relief. But Hannah suddenly cried and hugged Sam, then said that someone had locked up this poor animal in the closet and hurt it. Right at that time, the lights in the attic started to flicker, then went off. Strong winds from outside started to blow in and toss the curtain, revealing a dark shadow hiding behind. "Dad? Is that you, Dad?" Hannah shouted and rushed to hug the shadow. "Stop!" my mom screamed. But when we'd reacted to anything, the shadow knocked her down and tried to escape. At that moment, I realized that it was exactly a burglar sneaking at my house. Because of being exposed, he became aggressive and rushed towards me, but my mom quickly prevented him. They wrestled on the floor. I ran to them and tried to help my mom, but I was pushed back by him. In the most dangerous time, when my mom was about to be knocked out. Then from outside the door, Uncle Joan suddenly barged in and knocked him down quickly. After that, we immediately called the cops. After a short time, the cops appeared and took the burglar to the police station. Here, he confessed that his first intention was to break into my house and steal things. But unfortunately, he was seen and bitten by the dog Hannah raised. He used a thing on the table to knock the dog down, then tied it up and locked it in the closet. The objects were fallen all over the floor, which was also the result of that fight. The bloodstains on the floor belonged to him and the dog. Right that night, we took the poor dog to the vet. Luckily, his wound wasn't too bad. After a few days being taken care of, it quickly recovered and went home. My family made a decision to raise a dog, which made my little sister very happy. After that horrible night, my mother and I learned the lesson. We forgot our loved ones and left them alone. It was our ignorance that made Hannah's mentality unusual. We need to share and talk with each other more. This is the way to get over the sorrow in our life. Hi, I'm Jack, and I'm 16. I know that name sounds like a boy, but I'm actually a girl. I'm pretty quiet, and I always act like a man to make my parents happy. Everything started with my brother Kevin. When my existence had started, sadly, he lost in a car accident at the age of 3. 2 years later, my mom was pregnant. My mom and dad longed to have a boy to erase the death of my brother in their heart. So when a girl like me was born, I could imagine how sad they were. They called me Jack. Now, looking back when I was a child, I only had toys for boys, such as action characters or water guns. My parents never let me wear beautiful dresses and skirts. In fact, in all the photos of me when I was a child, I looked like my brother Kevin. They cut my hair shortly like a boy. I guess my friends and relatives realized my parents' weird behavior. So when I was 2, we moved far away from everyone. But I had to study on my own during kindergarten and primary school. This house is my world. My room is decorated with the concept of pirate, but I like mermaids more. At that time, I really thought that I was a boy, and even I didn't wonder about my gender. Sometimes, my friend next door came to my house on the day off. When I bragged with him about my pirate ship collection, she said to me that his little sister had a Barbie collection that she always swooned into her Barbie dolls. He told me all about the accessories of those dolls. All their clothes would be changed in only 15 minutes, and it took a lot of time to create their hairstyle. He thought girls were so terrible, but it was like I was hypnotized. Hearing that, I loved everything that his sister had more than some boring pirate ships I had. But when I talked to my mom and dad, my mom was immediately sad. My father became so angry and told me that a boy never played with that kind of toy. Since then, whenever that guy came, I tried to behave like what I thought a boy was like and told him that girls are terrible. When my mom heard what I told that boy about the girls, she looked at me with a happy smile that I hadn't had before. I was glad to make my mom happy. Once, that guy and I were floating my pirate ships in the bathtub when he said he needed to pee. The toilet is right next to the bathtub, so I could see him peeing. I didn't mean to look, but it's just that it caught my eye, making me notice him. The way he peed is so weird. He didn't sit down, but took something out of his pants. I was confused, so I asked my dad. Then I knew the truth. My dad told me to sit down and said it was how a boy peed in that situation, and that he and I were different. Right, my little daughter, you're a girl, so don't use the toilet with anyone. After that, my dad explained to me that my mom could hardly accept that my brother had lost, especially that I was born reminded them of my brother Kevin. So basically, I am living under my brother's shadow in order to indulge their own emotions. When I was 12, my parents didn't have any choice but let me go to high school. They rejected my self-study application form. On the morning of the first day I went to school, my dad dropped me off in front of the school gate. When I stepped out of the car, he said, "You don't allow to say you are a girl, otherwise don't blame me." Pretending to be a boy in front of everyone made me scared enough, as well as my dad's threat. I won't say it. My dad sighed and said, "Good job. Mom needs you to do that. She couldn't bear losing one more son." On my first day at school, I didn't know how my parents could fake my information, but no one knew that I was a girl. Even my teacher called me a boy and gave me a uniform for boys. I made friends with a guy named Draven, and soon we became so close. Being with him made me feel like a boy. That's right, sometimes it was hard though, especially in the toilet or in the changing room, clearly. I couldn't use a boy urinal, and I always changed my clothes in the toilet in order not to take off my clothes in front of the boys. I made an excuse that I had some problems with my skin, so I didn't want them to see it. No one talked badly about my problem because they knew that Draven would be mad at them right away. The excuse of having a disease related to skin saved me not to taking the swimming class. Time went by, and keeping that lie became more difficult. My breast was growing, and even though I was a small girl, everyone can easily see my breast. I had to use a chest band to cover my breast. This sometimes made me difficult to breathe, so my dad told my teacher that I got a heart disease and couldn't take part in physical activities in school. And this made me sadder. Now I'm 13. I know I cannot do it forever. I still continue to lie about myself, but day by day, everything seemed to be more difficult. I made up my mind to tell my parents how I felt. But I stepped into the kitchen and saw my mom looking at an old album of my brother. Then she said, "My Kevin, you look so cute in this picture." She showed me the picture of my brother sitting in the middle of his toys. "Mom, I'm not Kevin. I am Jack. Do you remember?" No, you're my cute Kevin." She hugged me and ruffled my hair. My dad got in, and my mom kept calling me Kevin and said to my dad how handsome I was. My dad was worried. He gently pulled me away and took my mom to go upstairs. My dad said I needed to do better at pretending to be a boy. Otherwise, my mom would be painful in her heart, and this shock would kill her. I thought my mom's health had a problem, and it happened for a long time. But pretending to be a boy when I was a girl made me feel hurtful every day. Things even got worse. The more time I spent with Draven, the more I realized that I fell in love with him. I thought about him every time, and I dreamed of how my life would be if he considered me as a girl. And would we be an official couple? Right. I didn't know what was doing. I knew that I can't keep this secret anymore. But I didn't want my parents to hate me. I wonder if I should keep that lie to please my parents. I should make them heartbroken and confess to them that I couldn't lie anymore, and that I wanted everyone to know that I was a girl. Then the thing I didn't want happened. At the school science fair, I fainted, which made the teacher, Draven, and classmates worried about me at that time. They took me to the medical room. When I woke up, there were my teacher, Draven, and a nurse around me. I was told that I fainted because of my stress, and on top of that, I had trouble breathing for a long time because of my brassiere. It was so bad that Draven and my teacher heard everything. They surprisingly asked me, "A brassiere? So you're a girl?" I was dead frozen in a few seconds. I didn't have a chance to speak when Draven left. I was very sad and kept silent for a while. I thought Draven would hate me because I'd lied to him. I'd lied to everyone during this time and even lied to myself. Thinking for a while, I decided to tell my teacher all my things. She understood and encouraged me. Finally, everyone had left. I was sitting alone waiting for my dad to pick me up. Suddenly, a familiar voice resounded. It's just because it was so unexpected to me. I can't adopt right away, but I thank you for letting me know this truth. It has helped me answer the question I have been wondering about for a long time. Actually, I seem to fall in love with you. That feeling is so odd that I don't know how to explain. Because I thought you were a boy, so it was impossible, so I didn't say this to you. But now I can. He blushed and looked at. It's unbelievable. The person I loved standing in front of me and confess his feeling to me. But all my happy thought clouded away because of the fear to face with my parents. But that night, with my teacher and Draven's encouragement, I plucked up my courage to talk with my parents. I had to fight for my life. I couldn't keep living under my brother's shadow. This might take a long time because I encountered my father's anger and my mother's disappointment. But then I succeeded. I could be myself. I live like other normal girls. Despite many difficulties to change my perennial habit, I feel happy with my current life.